pen and paper on this player haters, old news, money on the other line. So I'm
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of I'm Not Gonna Hold You, the off-season, our interview series we've got, man, with a whole bunch of dope creators in music, media, and entertainment scene, man. Of course, I'm your host, Scott. You know to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Barber_Scott. Follow HNB Media at HNB Media TV on Twitter and at HNB Media on Instagram. And of course, follow the Barbers Chat Network at Barbers Chat Net on Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe to Patreon, man. Patreon.com/Barbers Chat Network. Today, I am privileged to have another great guest with me here. Today, we've got the one and only Andrew Barber, CEO and founder of FakeshoreDrive. If you don't know who this guy is, you don't know who the site is, if you don't know his whole movement, you've been living under a rock for almost a decade and a half now, man. This guy has done everything in the space, man. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on, man. Always a pleasure. Congrats on all your success, bro.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. There's a lot to get into, man.
Yeah.
Let's just start into what FakeshoreDrive is for people who might not know, of the few people who don't know, what exactly the site is, and how long you've been doing it, and pretty much what was your goal when you started it?
Yeah. So I created FakeshoreDrive in October of 2007. So we celebrate our 15-year anniversary this year. Super excited, in like 15 years in the music space feels like dog years. So it feels like I've been doing it for like I've been doing it for like 40 years. But happy to still be here, happy to still be around. So basically, long short of why I started FakeshoreDrive was around 2007. This is when blogs really started, like media started changing, right? The way we consume music started changing. And blogs started to become a thing. And like I was working like a 9-to-5 job that I didn't necessarily love, but it was cool. But like I was reading all these blogs. My dream was always working in the music business. I never wanted to be an artist myself or like a DJ or producer or anything like that. I always wanted to be like behind the scenes or like an A&R or an executive of some sort, even a journalist. Like I was always into that, but I'm not a trained journalist or anything. But being in Chicago is not like necessarily like an easy place to just jump in the music business, especially at that time. I feel like now you could be anywhere you want.
Way better now. Yeah.
You could be anywhere in the world that you want to be and make a name for yourself. But like in 2006, 2007, that did not exist. Like, I used to fax my resume because I should look up like the fax numbers on the back of CD covers or like on the inserts and like fax my resume to Jive or Bad Boy or whatever. Like just looking to try to get an internship or a job. And like that was not an easy thing to do. But anyway, at the time in Chicago, there was a lot of exciting stuff and a lot of really dope artists that were like had a buzz making a name for themselves. But it felt like unless you were one of the big four at the time, which was Common, Kanye, Twista, or Lupe Fiasco, like those blogs, like the big blogs that were starting to emerge, weren't really covering them. Right. And like, I thought it was weird that Chicago was the third largest market in the United States and didn't have like a much bigger footprint in hip hop. Like, to have four big artists like that were relevant at that time, not to take anything away from like Do or Die, Crucial Conflict, or like a lot of the people that were, had come even before them. But like at 07, like, the cool kids had a whole wave going, in Chicago. Like even like people like Bump J, Mickey Halstead, Mano, Hollywood Holt, Kid Sister. There's a lot of people doing it, but like specifically the cool kids. And I was going to to their shows, and they would have a line down the street. All different types of people waiting in line to go to their shows. People that I'd never seen at like rap shows before were in line to go to cool kid shows. And they had like no blog presence, which I thought was crazy because they were perfect for that space.
Right.
And, a lot of the people that had these big buzzes on websites or online, they'd come to Chicago and have a show at the House of Blues, and there might be, 50% full, 40% full. And I'm like, this isn't adding up. So like, I just started going out. I was going to these events anyway, and I just started covering it. And I started covering the artist and like really focusing in to give the artist, a platform. It didn't necessarily like I didn't think it would become like a full-time job where I would be doing it 15 years later. It just kind of happened like that. It was really just a hobby.
Yeah, and that whole time period you mentioned, like with 06 and 07, like to me, that was like kind of like, like you saying how all these different artists would come in and you weren't why they weren't getting this kind of buzz and thing like that. That was like a real interesting time in Chicago hip hop where I feel like there was a lot of people, like you said, who had stuff. It's just the spotlight wasn't on them. And this is when I was like, I just graduated high school, and I think I just my freshman year at Columbia, and that's like when I started like seeing these things. Now, obviously, you have a love for hip hop. Where did that start from? Like, what was some like your original memories of listening to hip hop? Like, oh, I would love to do something, in this culture.
Man, I'm like, whew, I go all the way back to the 80s, late 80s. DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. He's the DJ, I'm the rapper. That was the first rap tape I ever had. I had it on cassette. And the reason why is because there was like this Freddy Krueger song on there, Nightmare on My Street. And that's when like Freddy was like the shit. Like Freddy Krueger was like the man. Everybody was Freddy for Halloween. And like, people were wearing like Freddy Krueger gloves. And like that song is the first like rap song that I really remember hearing, other than like Walk This Way, Run DMC, Aerosmith. And like they used to play that on MTV. But that was like, that almost felt like more of a novelty song to me. But like once I got into DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, I just fell in love with it. And like that was my thing ever since. And then from that, I got deeper into it and like discovered like EPMD and Public Enemy. Public Enemy was like really big for me. And then of course like Too Short and NWA and just like everything, man. And that was, quite a long time ago. I don't need to date myself too much, but yeah, I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, it's always those beginning moments that kind of like spark you. Like I know for me with music, the first rapper that I remember hearing actually was probably the first video I remember seeing. I had to be like 9 years old, and it was like the All About the Benjamins video on the Vox.
Okay.
And I remember seeing, I'm like, man, this shit look cool. And with sports, of course, in Chicago, it's Michael Jordan. Like, Michael Jordan was like the birth of everything for me. And so
when you were, so let me ask you this. So like when you were that age, so you came about at the time, like, so if you're 9 years old when Benjamins came out, right? So that's 97.
Yeah.
So had you heard any Chicago? You had not heard any Chicago rap prior to that.
No, because
isn't that crazy that like your first
like
a Chicago thing?
Yeah, and that's perfect. That's actually right. Like, because I was born in '88, and like my parents were like, I listened to rap like at the time I wasn't supposed to listen to it. Like they were like real, you ain't supposed to listen to this. Like I was lived in a Michael Jackson house. That's like really the only thing I knew. Like Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, old school Motown. But like my cousins, they went to Morgan Park High School, and then they ended up going to Northern, Northern University. And so they would come come during the summer and stay in our house. And we had like this den in the back. And he would just be watching rap videos. That's when I was back there watching. And that's when I saw Puffy, All About the Benjamins, Biggie, Tupac. And that's kind of where my love for like R&B came too, because they would be playing like SWV. So I'll be hearing all this stuff as a kid. And my favorite rapper was just Jay-Z. I didn't get on him till later, like probably like around Dynasty era. It's like all that stuff I had to pretty much learn for myself. My parents didn't want me to listen to that type of music.
But you were also super young. So like by the time the Dynasty comes, you're like, you're very young. So like you at least knew what was going on. But I think like now rap is just like part of the air. Like kids just come in and it's everywhere. It's on TikTok and it's just like music is basically free for everybody now. It's so easily accessible.
And these kids got phones. So it's like I didn't have a phone, I feel like, till like college.
I didn't have a phone till I was in college. And it's just part of the air now. But like back then, like you had to sneak it. Like I'm sure if you saw like if you had a Puff Daddy in the Family tape or see, like you were hiding, you probably, and your parents didn't want you to have it. Like you had to hide it. Like I had like
a shoebox, like drug money under my bed.
I mean, that's what I had. And because my parents, one of my friends had a NWA Straight Outta Compton cassette, and I thought once I heard NWA, it was over. Like I was like, oh, this is different. Like Will Smith was like, that was over with at that point. Once I heard like NWA, it was like this shit was way, it was way different. It was way harder. It was like the beats were crazier. And I brought it home to make it because you have to dub the cassette to cassette. My dad had like the dual disc cassette thing, and I borrowed it from one of my friend's older brothers to bring home. And I'm thinking he's just going to dub it for me and not listen to it. So he pops it in. And the first song, he's straight out of Compton. He's like, straight out of Compton, crazy motherfucker named Ice Cube. And he stopped it. He's like, you cannot have this. You're like 8 years old, dude. I have the 8-year-old now, so now it's like I can't even believe I tried to.
I was listening to right. I definitely had that. It was like that to me. It was like hip hop, sports, and pro wrestling. Like I was a huge WWE fan, and even now when I look at some of them old WWE, I'm like, man, I was sitting here like Triple H was saying shit that a 10-year-old shouldn't be listening to, like And it's like we didn't care as kids. It's like when you get older, you understand a little bit. Like I understand my parents were a little more stricter and get that. And like this is actually like an actual story that I was talking to my friend about yesterday, and we was talking about like the blueprint. Because it's like 21 years now, which is like I call that the album that changed my life. That's when I knew I wanted to do something in hip hop entertainment. That's what solidified to me. And like, I think, a lot of people forget it came out during 9/11, like on 9/11. And I was remembering how I was in 7th grade. I'm getting ready to walk to school. And that's when I saw the towers. I'm in 7th grade, so I didn't know what the hell was going on. I'm like, oh, something's on fire. My cousin's supposed to take me to Target, go get the blueprint. See, this is back when we had to bring somebody over 17 to buy the albums. And then he told me we couldn't get it that day. And I was like, why we couldn't get it? So as a kid, I couldn't understand that. Yo, it's a tragedy going on. All I want is my Jay-Z album.
That's it. And I remember that day. I mean, that was such a weird day just because like I went and bought it that same day. Walked to the store and just that's it. That was a crazy memory that a lot of people have that. Like, I think how many people like share this memory of that time.
Yeah, it was just wild when you think about it. And I was like, that was like a crazy 2 weeks in like music slash real life. It was Aaliyah's death, Michael Jackson's 30th anniversary concert was literally the night before 9/11. I think a lot of people don't remember that it was a night before. And Jay-Z and Fabulous album dropping too. A lot of people forget about Fab, but and so like, but basically like when you start a company, when you start, Fake Sure, which I look at as more as a website. I feel like that's like a whole movement in general right now. Yeah. The toughest part is like getting people to get in tune to what you're doing. So what was like some of the early struggles you had starting FakeshoreDrive?
It was definitely a struggle at that time, especially in Chicago, which, okay, so 2007 is really a transitional time. Yeah. Like now technology is moving. So like every year is a transition. Every 3 years is a transition. But like at this time, I'm going out to events. I'm meeting people. And everybody's focus still was like trying to get their songs on the radio and trying to get their videos on BT, MTV. Everybody wanted a 106 in Park premiere or, try to get a new joint of the day or whatever. Like that's what people were trying to get to. They weren't utilizing necessarily YouTube, which was only 2.5, 3 years old. Like it was
I think it was like a year old or something like that.
2 years old. It came out in 2005. YouTube was 2005. So like it's a year and a half too old, 2 years old at this point. So people still aren't really up on, not everybody's online like that yet. Yeah. Not everybody still is a time where not everybody, it's crazy to think about now. Not everybody has high-speed internet. Not everybody knows how to find music. Obviously, we are somewhat children and we lived in the real world and the online life. So like we knew how to find music online.
We the last era of people who knew what life was like before the internet took over.
Right. And so I'm kind of young at the time. I'm in my mid-20s at that time, early mid-20s at that time, and like not early, but like mid-20s at that time. So I'm talking to people who are even 3, 4, 5 years older than me or more, and they're not online like that at all. They haven't been like they might have a MySpace page, right? Because MySpace was also brand new at the time. Yeah. So I went like to this website online and like printed up this like you could get like 1,000 business cards for $10 or $20. It was something crazy like that. It was really cheap. And like if anybody that has one of those like a super collector's item, because like I put my address on there, my phone number, like stuff I would never do now. I'd never like but I wanted to seem like I was an official person, like with an office apartment. But like I would work during the day, and at night I would go to any event, any concert, any kind of networking event, whatever I would go to. And I just had these stacks of business cards, and I would walk up to everybody and just introduce myself. Anybody that I would recognize or like knew from the industry, I would walk up, give them a card, and like they'd be like, "Yo, who's this white guy?" Like, would kind of asking to give me your music for free so I can post it on your website, or like put it on YouTube and like send me the link and I'll embed it on my. It was like still like such a foreign concept at the time, and like. Some people were like, got it. Like some people like immediately got it. And like I'll say like the first person to really embrace was Bump J and Shake, his brother Shake.
Okay.
Which is crazy. Like a lot of people would not think.
He's approachable. Yeah.
They reached out to me. They were like, I don't know if they had been vanity Googling themselves or whatever of how they found it, but they found out that I had been writing about like Bump J. So then they reached out to me and were like, hey, we love that you're writing about us. Like, can we just start sending you like our music as exclusives? I broke it down what I was doing, and they just started sending me everything. Like, they let me premiere like the Dinner Time mixtape. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember Dinner Time.
Yeah, you remember Dinner Time. That was like the last tape that he had right before he got locked up.
The Gangsta Grills, right? Oh no, that was Chicago Rilla.
That was Chicago Rilla. I think that was the one right after. I think after. That was like a year later. I was a huge Bump J fan. Like and people like forget how big Bump J was because it's like
Bump had a presence in the street that I don't think we'll ever see in Chicago because like he had like the gangs unified. Like it really didn't matter what side of the city you was on, people was messing with Bump. That's what I remember when I was in high school.
Yeah, and it was like you know, they were touting him as like the next 50 Cent, right? Because he got $1 million record deal. He got $1 million publishing deal, and he had like a clothing deal with Echo. So like he was moving.
McDonald's commercial.
Move around. He had Kanye producing his debut, like producing like a bulk of his debut. He was on the Kanye West Diary on MTV.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
But it's like, dude, there was like, and then when I tell people like, yo, Bump was like, I don't know if I don't think it was as big as Keith, but it was pretty close.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain to people that because there's no like evidence of that now, right? Because this was all physical copies. Mixtapes. It's not like there's SoundScan that you can prove. It's not like there's Billboard charts you can look up. There wasn't even
full street marketing. Yeah.
And they were selling CDs or giving them away. So like you can't unless you were there, you can't really even prove like how big of a thing that was.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's when he was working with No ID. He was doing like he was gonna do his next project produced by No ID. And that's how I met No ID, and then that's how I met Traxter was through No ID, and then I met Twista, you know, and then I met Mickey Halstead. So like, Bump and Shake, specifically Shake, his brother, who now works for Sal, who works for Weekend's, company. He works with he's high up with Belly and Weekend and Doja Cat and all them now. He's killing it. He introduced me to a lot of people, including like E from LEP, Bogus Boys. He was like the head of the Infrared music label. And so just like that, and like once a few people like stamp you and like co-sign and like show that, you know, this guy's for real, like he's not like on some bullshit, then like other people everybody kind of started coming after that. Like, you know, you build it brick by brick type thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one thing after another. Like, what was the moment where you're like, oh shit, like this is like getting pretty huge. Like this is getting even bigger than I thought it would get when I came up with the idea.
I think like I always say when Twista bought me a birthday cake.
Oh shit. That's dope.
Because our birthdays are right around the same time of each other. His birthday's like a week or two after mine or a week after mine. And they had like a big party for him. I think Double XL threw it. It was like a big party. I don't know if it was like I can't remember. Was it Wetter? I'm looking at one of his records had something like maybe went gold or something like that. And they had a party at on Randolph Dragon. What was the name of that place?
Red Dragon or something like that?
It's long gone now.
About. Yeah, all this stuff is gone. This is like old school Chicago. Yeah.
This is all that stuff. It's like it was before Randolph was like the hottest place to hang out. There was nothing over there. Yeah. There was still like butcher shops over there and like Bon V, which was Urlacher's Brothers Club. Like that was like that was like the only thing that was. I don't know if you remember Bon V. You might have been. I
remember that whole little area over there. Like it looks nice now, but over there it looked like a a scene from Daredevil back then.
The only thing that was over there then was Bon V, which was Urlacher's Brothers Club. So you could always see Urlacher there. And Oprah, Harpo Studios. That was like the only reason that people were over there. But they had a party there one night, and they knew it was actually on my birthday. And I let them know, like, yo, I'm coming, but it's on my birthday. And like they presented me with a cake, and it had like the FakeshoreDrive logo on it. It was like happy birthday, Andrew. And Traxter bought me like a bottle of champagne. So I was like, okay. Like, all right, okay. I think I'm on my way now. So that was like, because like I grew up loving Twister. He's still one of my favorites.
I'm a big Twister guy too. Yeah, especially like when Rockefeller was around, I was like, that was one of the deals I wish happened. Even though he was Rockefeller, he wasn't like officially rock. Like that was one I really wanted to see, because Jay and Dame, Kanye all was like roll out the red carpet for him.
I mean, the thing about Twister is, and I think now like people kind of understand, like I think like he almost needs a document, because he's had a long ass career, dude. He's had him and Common, dude. These guys have both had a 30+ year career. Yep. I think people forget that Twister was like the first artist ever signed to Loud Records.
Yep.
So like he was on Loud before Wu-Tang Clan, before Mobb Deep, before Big Pun, before Alcoholics. Like Twister was the first artist on, and he was known as Tongue Twister then. And like, you know, he's had so many different like now, like he just went viral last week for, you know, doing ventriloquism. So like he's just a really interesting dude, and he's been around for a long time. And like, you know, him and Common, those dudes really paved the way for like, you know, to help put Chicago on, and like the Midwest, you know, as a whole.
Yeah.
So salute to both those guys.
Yeah, and Twister's a real cool dude. A few times I've met him, he's always been a cool guy. Haven't met Common yet, but Twister's always been a cool guy when I ran into him. Now the height of FakeshoreDrive to me, this is when I was like slowly starting to get into the music industry, started like managing cats. It was like, man, I don't know. I know you remember the rumor when people was like, well, you got to pay Andrew to get on FakeshoreDrive. Yeah. Like, like I remember, I never forget the first time that, you know, Pappy got his video on Fakeshore. I had people text me, so how much you pay him? I was like, I ain't pay him shit. Like, you know, I met him, cool guy, and then, you know, I sent him the joint and he posted it. Like, it's really like not that. How did that like whole thing go? Like to the point where people thinking that you had certain relationships with people and like you were like not messing with, I don't know, like the lower Chicago artists, because that was like a thing for like a couple of years.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like that, you know, I'm glad that's not a thing anymore, because it was that was a very stressful time. And like I never did this to like, you know, people were like, oh, you were a gatekeeper, and like, whatever, I'm gatekeeper, whatever, call me. But like, we weren't really even trying to like gatekeep. We were trying to knock the gates down and like, you know, bring artists in that weren't signed and maybe didn't have a budget. But like, you know, you can't post everybody, and like, it's hard to do that. And I've been, for the most part, a 1 or 2 man operation, other than Ty. You know, Ty. I worked with Ty Howard at some guy named Ty on Twitter, Instagram for years and years and years. But like, it was really just the two of us, and like, there wasn't like it was some big operation, and we never took money for posts, never. And like, if you could find somebody that says they paid to get a post on FakeshoreDrive, like an artist, like like a rapper or whatever, like they're lying, and you have proof, I'll sign the deed over to the site to you, because we never did that. And like, you can't, like, once you start doing that, people know, and you kind of lose credibility. And I think credibility was, you know, is everything in music, at least in hip hop. Like, so I didn't want to be known as a pay for play person. But like, anytime you have success, people are gonna make a relative success, right? I'm not saying I was super successful, but like relative to whatever, people always are gonna say that, you know, he blackballed me, or, you know, I don't have enough money to pay to get on the site, which was not true. Or like, my favorite was when people would be like, man, I saw him riding around. I saw Andrew riding around in a Bentley. I saw Andrew riding around in a Range Rover. He's getting rich off you guys. And I was like, no, I really wasn't, man. I definitely never, you know, was balling like that. But it was good. Like, you know, if people are talking about it like that, and it's a big deal to get on, like, you know, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was like the biggest thing to do, man. Because I remember that's when the comment section was cracking too. Oh my god! It was like kind of like a chat room on the comments. Like the more comments you had,
before people could like build, you know, their own personalities, or whatever, on Twitter or Instagram, especially Twitter. I think because Twitter was years before. Twitter was 3 or 4 years before even Instagram happened. Yeah, and like before people built personalities online, like on Twitter or whatever, it became, you know, a thing. There was personalities in the comment section, and the comment section would just get
Out of control.
Wild. And it died a quick, I would say quick death once we made it where people had to actually like log on. When you could comment anonymously, dude, it was crazy. I would get calls at 3 a.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m., like, and I had to go to work the next day. People would be like, what the fuck? Da-da-da-da. Somebody posted my phone number on there. You need to delete it. Or somebody posted my home address. Like, people would post crazy stuff on there. So, like, anytime people would, like, reach out and complain about, you know, something like that, or if things got personal, people were like, you know, his mom works here, his sister does this, and, like, I would always delete that stuff. And, like, it just got to be too out of control.
Yeah.
And I went in and made it so you had to at least, if you wanted to, you could still sign up under like a fake email. You can still put a fake name. But it was
like dudes ain't going through the whole little process to like leave comments. Yeah.
It added an extra step to it, and people that kind of stopped. But then people, you know, things changed, and like then people moved online and started having dialogue on Twitter because there's a lot of people who are great commenters and have great opinions, and then they, you know, moved to Twitter and where they built followings as they should, right? I mean, you know, more people see it and they can grow their brand that way, which is a good thing. And then, you know, things change. People move on from that, and then streaming comes along and, you know, kind of deads, you know, what blogs did as far as music discovery. So, you know, it's just, you know, those things change, and that kind of stuff can't last forever.
Yeah, and like to go back, you talking about how it was like kind of like a 2-man show with you and Ty for like a minute. That's one thing like about like entrepreneurship and stuff like that. I don't think people understand sometimes. Like I feel like entrepreneurship is glorified too much. Like to the point where like it's cool to like, you know, have a 9 to 5. Like I always say, I wish I didn't have a problem with authority. My life would be way much easier. You know what I'm saying? Instead of like trying to make these companies, but like even like with like Barber's Chat Network, what we do, it's like really kind of like a 4-man operation, really 2, because like my business partners, they kind of do like the technical edit stuff. Like me and my homie Dante, we do the day-to-day. And somebody told me that they like, man, y'all make it look easy. Like, how'd you get in contact with the Bears and like the Clippers? And it's kind of like what you said about like just reaching out to people. I'm like, I email dudes. Like I email.
Well, sometimes it's easier than like I think a lot of times people complicate things. Like it's not. It's really not that. Like if you're just know how to maneuver the internet and find people's emails and like it's way easier now than ever, like before, to find people.
100%.
And like people are looking for people like you who are good and are down to like have a good opinion, have a good voice, know how to like that are for real about it. You know, I think people are looking for that type of stuff.
Yeah, and it's just like to me, I was like, it's nothing like, you know, the Bears just hit me up like, oh, I like your podcast. Like, no, I emailed the dudes who had a relationship with somebody else, and now I'm like, I got a great relationship with my favorite team, and it's like kind of wild. Like you were talking about how Twister gave you the cake. Like I went to Bears practice like 3 weeks ago, and I'm like, dude, like I'm sitting here and they go to general manager of the team right there, and it's like you have like the little out of body experience, man. So that type of stuff is like,
I mean, isn't that surreal though? I mean, that's what like
very surreal. Yeah,
I mean, that's a dream come true. Like if you're a sports nut, like it doesn't get much better than being like invited to a Bears, you know, preseason practice or whatever. Like, come on. And like you'll be able to go to games and probably go on the field. And I don't know if you've done that yet, but like,
oh yeah, we cover the team, so we do like I did like 8 games last year. Like this is our 3rd season, so it's like, and it's just like I did the Clippers for the first time this year, and it's like I always say, well, watching NBA players on TV is one thing, but I actually got watching Steph Curry's pregame routine, and like he's like right this close to me. It was just like, how did I get here?
And that's stuff that you probably didn't think, you know. 5 years ago, you were probably like, there's no way I could ever, you know, do that. But then it's just like taking the steps to do it. And it's like, I think a lot of times, like, I think we do over glorify like the entrepreneurial lifestyle. And it's like, sometimes it's like, man, I just wish I had a 2-week paycheck type of gig. And like, I didn't have to, you know, right.
Who you telling, man?
But then once you do stuff like that, then it's like, makes it all worth it. Right. It's like, okay, I actually figured out how to do this. And like, you know, this is pretty cool. If it all goes south and this doesn't last or whatever, at least I can say I did that.
At least I did this. Yeah. So it's like with Fake Shore, I feel like we're like in a different era. Like you said, it's been 15 years now. Like, how would you like explain like what you guys do now? Like, how is it different? You know, we bring up with the streaming and how music is consumed. I feel like now for artists, they've got to do everything. And I'm not going to act like it's ever been like fully about music. You can go back to Motown days and it was still a lot of business. But I feel like now artists have to wear a multitude of hats just to get their music heard. how would you say that Fake Shore has evolved from the blog era into like what you guys do now?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think now it's like it's moving even like faster than ever. Like when artists reach out to me now, they're like, yo, what can I do to get on? And it's like, dude, I don't even know what to tell you now. Like 5-10 years ago, I could have told you the exact steps to take. You got to get on this blog, you got to get on this web, you got to do this, this, and this, you got to perform here, you got to do it. Like now it's like, who knows? You know, people are just doing Hail Marys trying to go viral. And, you know, so much effort is put into TikTok and playlisting and all that. It's like, so I just started seeing that. I started seeing that changing, you know, about 5 years ago on our 10-year anniversary. I'm like, all right, you know, this is not just blog posts every day now because, you know, the cool thing about the blog era was like the people kind of took the ball back, right?
Yeah.
From like the industry really controlled everything so strong for years. Like I'm saying record labels and stuff. And then like the blogs come around and like the labels were kind of had lost some of their power. So blogs had a lot more juice than like some TV shows, some radio. Like people wanted that more so than looks elsewhere. Like it was kind of like more important at the time.
Shit, labels was coming to y'all a lot of times.
Right. But then streaming happens and like they figured out how to get the bag back. And so like they control everything. So like, you know, they know that artists can't, you know, you're not going to get leaks in a way that you did 5-10 years ago. Everything comes out through the DSPs now, right?
Yep.
And if you don't, you may not make the new Music Friday playlist because you leaked it early and you didn't give it to our platform first or equal. You didn't premiere on all the platforms at the same time. So like, you know, all these DSPs are at war with not at war, but like, oh, you gave it to Apple first. Oh, you gave it to Spotify first. You gave it to Tidal first or whatever. So like everybody plays by the same. All right, it comes out at midnight on Thursday or whatever, or like it comes out, hits all DSPs at this time. Like that killed the exclusive, right? In a lot of ways. So it's like, how do you adapt? And it's like, all right, well, people aren't really going to blogs as much as they used to. Stuff straight through podcasts. It's straight through social media now. Like people are listening to podcasts. People are going straight to social media for their stuff. They don't want to take the extra step,
right?
To go to a blog and like do that. They want their information fast and they want to see it right then on Instagram or Twitter, whatever. So it's like, got to build the following up, whether it be Instagram or Twitter. I prefer Twitter. I know you're a beast on Twitter. You like, I mean, like, I think for what we do, Twitter is even better than Instagram. I know people would probably beg to differ, but
my Instagram is very boring.
Right.
I wish it was better. I just post jokes and like sports shit on there.
Right. But I think the dialogue on information is just, to me, better on Twitter. So like building your Twitter presence and like, you know, moving over. So I started working with Apple doing the new Chicago playlist. And I started, you know, we did a radio show on Shade 45 that's still been going on, and like started doing artist management. So I still work with Valet.
Okay.
And just doing other stuff, working with brands from Red Bull to Hennessy to Adidas to, you know, whoever. Just did some stuff with Amazon earlier this year and Verizon. So like, you know, just trying to diversify. Now it's not like just one thing. It's like 10 different things to make one salary.
Definitely. That's you do got to wear like multiple hats with these things. Like you got to be, you know, owner, booking agent, the whole
lot, man. You know,
it's
just not unless you have a cushy job somewhere. Like if you're doing it on your own, and like you said, you like to be your own boss, and like authority, you don't necessarily love other authority figures. You want to be your own. Like you have to hustle and do a lot of different stuff.
Man, you just mentioned Amazon. Like I worked at Amazon Studio for like 3 years, and it's just that's when like the idea for Barber's chair came. I was just sitting like, man, I can't do this shit no more. I was like, I got to do something else. And it was like, you know, this was like before the studio really like took off. I know everybody loves The Boys right now, the TV show The Boys. I was there when like I saw the first couple like sketchings of the show,
like the first iteration of it,
the first iteration. And this is why I was like, maybe me picking shows and the best idea. I was like, what type of fake Avenger shit is this? So that was obviously I was wrong on that one.
Right.
But,
right.
You know,
but
it's happens. Like, it's like you have the moments where it's like, okay, I want to do something else. Like, so with Fake Show, we all know it was a big Chicago one, but there was a point in time where it was like the rest of the world was getting on to what you were doing and like bigger artists. Now, when did that kind of like, what was like the first thing where like maybe an artist not from Chicago or outlet was like, yo, we need to be talking to him and getting to him with what Fake Show is doing?
I mean, and actually I just wrote an article about this that'll be dropping very soon. It's got to be the 2012, the great gold rush of 2012 is what I like to call it when Keith blew up. I mean, that was the number one, most popular, most active, most traffic Fake Short Drive ever had was like Keith, Dirk, King Louie, you know, Herb and Bibby. And then you get Chance the Rapper and Saba and Vic Mensa and No Name and Katie Got Bands and Sasha Go Hard and like all that time period, like that 2012, 2013, Mick Jenkins, like that was the craziest time because like label people were hitting me up every day. Like it was like they wanted Keith so bad, and then like the next year they wanted Chance so bad. Like people were offering me joint ventures with record labels. Ooh. Like if you can get me Keith, like we'll give you a joint venture at such and such, or like A&Rs, managers, all these people like were hitting me up trying to figure out a way to get, you know, to Keith, to Dirk, to Louis, to whoever. And like, that's when I was like, okay, this is really like, people are really checking, you know, FSD for what's happening here, like for what's going on in Chicago. Like, and this is like a real movement. Like that was, and I think somebody made a comment to me at that time. They were like, enjoy your 1 year. Like, this is Houston in 05. And no disrespect to Houston, but like people, you know, that's the remember when Houston blew up and like everybody, all these artists and like
Bun B was on every song on planet Earth.
Every year. Then Paul Wall, Mike Jones, Slim, like they had artists coming out of everywhere. They're like, congrats on your 1 year. Like Chicago will be done after this. It'll be irrelevant after this. And then it just kept going and going and going and going to where like, you know, Chicago's become like a very influential market with a lot of different huge artists. So it's like, all right, I did my job.
Yeah, and so like even like you know that there was like a lot of superstars there too, because I was like Dirk was just out here in LA not too long. I think he did something on YouTube by SoFi, and it's just like to see how far he's come. You know, I interviewed my man Merk Murphy. We was talking about the Keith explosion, him and Peter Pan and their involvement with it. And I was talking about this one time we had a studio session. It was me, Pavi, King Louie, Dirk, and Pavi and Dirk did this song, and I was just like,
I remember that.
See, from that era to see what Dirk is now was like crazy. You know what I'm saying? To see just how all those guys came. Now, you know, we talk about Keith and you know all these different movements. Now, was Keith your favorite movement in Chicago during your time, or was there one that you was like, this was like a real fun one out of anybody who was popping?
Oh, I mean, that was a fun one. I mean, there was a lot of stressful moments around that. I mean, there was a lot of stuff like when that was just like a crazy time because it happened. Keith was such a polarizing dude, and like a lot of people loved him. A lot of people, and just equally as many people, I feel like in Chicago hated him. They hated, you know, what he stood for and drill and all that. Like, and also like Keith and them like leapfrogged over a whole class of artists that were like paying their dues like the old-fashioned way. And like, I mean, I feel like those guys were like the first generation to like really understand the internet in a way that people before him couldn't really, because they weren't really from that. Like they understood that like how to use YouTube to their advantage, how to use all the you know, social media platforms like to their advantage. They weren't just building, like they were able to watch those things grow and like they knew how to attack. Like, but like the Chance rise, like that next year was like really crazy to see. And then like watch him go from that to winning 3 Grammys, performing at the Grammys and like selling out the, you know, Comiskey, whatever you want to call it now, like with all those huge artists, like, you know, that was really cool. I mean, while Fake Shore wasn't a thing, you know, when College Dropout dropped, like watching that explode in Chicago was super.
Yeah, that documentary took me back. The Genius doc, you know what I'm saying? That took me back to a time.
Like, no, it was crazy to see that. Like, it's hard to even wrap your brain around now, like a time when Kanye could just like walk around Chicago.
Right, exactly.
Like seeing him like by GCI, like walking on like you know, Lower Wacker area or like Michigan Avenue, like him just like walking around like by himself, going to the radio by like just stuff that you would never. It's hard to even imagine there was a time when, you know, he couldn't even sell out Reggie's. Like, think about it. Like, that's all even like. There was a time that like he couldn't even fill like Shuba's or Reggie's or something like that.
Reggie's. That was a spot. That was a spot. I remember I had to like throw an event there in college. It was actually funny thing. Me and Ozzie Guillen's son. I had class with Ozzie Guillen's son, and you know,
I've known him a few times. He's a wild dude.
as a Sox fan, I can tell people that Ozzie Guillen was at my college graduation. So, but
sick.
you know, and I just remember the whole little vibe they had over there. And you're right, like Kanye couldn't do that. Now he's like a freaking megastar, man. But
I mean, he did Soldier Field. You know, it's crazy to think how like
nuts
where life can take you.
Last question for you, man. Where do what would you think is like the state of Chicago hip hop right now, and how you feel like, kind of like I feel like Chicago finally is like a melting pot a little bit. Like, LA, they've got the thing out here with like a whole bunch of artists. New York always has Atlanta. I feel like Chicago finally has that spot, and I feel like you had a big part in helping that. How do you feel like? Where do you see Chicago within the next 5 years, and where you see like FakeshoreDrive in the involvement in the next 5 years?
I think like FakeshoreDrive's in a place where like, at some point you got to understand that like you just become like a legacy brand. Like I understand I'm not like the new kid on the block anymore. Right. And I haven't been for like, you have to understand like you're a legacy brand, or like, you can still be a factor, but like you may not be like because now it's like a younger generation is coming in, right? And like they know me. But they're like, people that are in their teens or 20s, like they didn't come up reading it. Probably they know what it is, they've heard of it, but they didn't grow up reading it. They just, it just wasn't, they didn't come up reading blogs. They've been on social media. So like they might look at other stuff and, I think Chicago's in a good spot because there is more of a foundation laid than from when we were on the rise, right? When we all kind of came up around the same time, right? You guys, you're younger than me, but like, we all kind of experienced a lot of that stuff together at the same time, right?
Yep.
These guys didn't really experience that. So like if you're 18 now or 19 now, you were 7, 8 years old when the Keith stuff happened. Like you don't even really kind of remember that, but you really don't even remember that. So you may not even understand his significance or Dirk's, like you don't remember that Dirk. You know Dirk now.
You don't remember Dirk with the long dreads.
Right. Like you don't know blonde dreads, United Center sold out.
Right.
Dirk. Like it's a different time, right? So like I feel like there's a good like road built for them, And I even take it back to like Twisted and Common and like D.A. Smart, and there's a lot of other ECLA, there's a lot of artists that were around in that time. Like, but like obviously most notably Twisted and Common, like it was just like a big jungle or just a big woods or whatever.
Right.
And like those dudes really had to walk through there with machetes and chop all that stuff down to kind of build a path for, everybody that came after them. And it's like, by the time, Crucial Conflict and Do or Die come, like, there's sidewalks. And then when Ye comes, like, he lays a road and he builds the buildings, and then like FakeshoreDrive and Key, and like there's like everybody starts building stuff and builds on it. So now like they got a nice little city and interstate and expressway to roll down, and like things are easier, but like the game is just changing so rapidly. I hope that like, what gives me hope? I'm kind of rambling right now because I'm just I have so many thoughts about this, but like what gives me hope, because I thought that regionalism was dead. I
did too for a minute.
I thought like the last regional movement we might see was Chicago with drill, and even like the Save Money and Chance stuff. Because like, that it is a branch from the No ID like Kanye family tree, Andy C like family tree or whatever. They had their own like sound and unique movement. So, but drill was like a very concise movement. But like, I'm like, okay, regionalism's dead because where you can't even tell where people are from now. It's like they're from the internet.
Right.
People just from the internet.
Yeah.
But seeing Detroit like blow up with that sound, with their own really distinct style of like, Cardi's and the sound, how their beats sound, like, and that becoming crazy influential, like gives me hope that like regionalism isn't dead and like we don't lose that. I think that's very important.
It's definitely very important. And I say, even though I feel like ever since I've been in LA for like 8 years now, which is nuts when I think about it. It's like, wow. LA has like it's just a huge local sound here too. Like they have like, like I'll come home and I'm like, man, you gotta listen to this other something. So I'm like, man, that's that West Coast ass shit. Like it still has a sound to me. Yeah. And I feel like Detroit was a perfect example. Babyface Ray, what they doing out there. My auntie lives in Detroit. I was there for Thanksgiving doing a Bears-Lions game, and just they've got their own shit. Like you said, I've been a big fan of, when I go to a city, I want to hear your music. When I go to New York, I want to hear what's hot in New York. I want to hear the legend stuff in New York. When I come here, I don't hear Nipsey, Dom, Kendrick, or
that's the best thing.
Some of the new guys.
Yeah. You could jump. They play local. When you go to LA, they're playing that stuff on the radio. Yep. You can put on K-Day and you can hear you can hear Ice Cube and Tupac and all the, King T or whatever. Like you hear whatever, like old school West Coast stuff on those stations, and like even new stuff. So that's a good thing. I hope regionalism continues to thrive, and I hope the next generation, continues to put on for Chicago, and like these movements keep happening. That's what we can hope. That's what we can only hope for. We left it in a good spot and left it better than we found it.
Definitely, it's definitely way better than I remember when we first started up this thing, man. But thank you for joining me, bro. It was real great to talk to you, man. Let them know where they can follow you on social media. We know everything you got coming out. Let them know where they can get in tune with you.
Yeah. We got some more stuff coming out, man. Check me out at FakeshoreDrive on Twitter and Instagram. Primarily on Twitter. Pretty active on Twitter, but like for sure, check us out there. FakeshoreDrive.com, still there. Not updated too frequently, but it's still there. And then more exciting stuff coming this way. Can't really talk about too much yet, but just stay tuned.
Definitely, man. For having me. No problem, man. Thank you for joining me. This is another episode of I'm Not Gonna Hold You, the off season. You know to follow me on Twitter at Barber Scott, man. I'm gonna holler at y'all in the next episode. Yo, we out.
Peace. Thanks, bro.
Triple double hat.